In this video, we are going to understand a bit more about the hybrid address support. This came as part of the Swift SR 2025 release, which is going to go live this November 2025. So before we understand what is a hybrid, or for that matter, what is a structured address, we should understand what is an unstructured address. So in the empty era, the addresses were transmitted in such a way where in post the name you have unformatted addresses. It was difficult to find out whether which one is a town, which one is a zip code, or which one is a city name. When we transitioned from MT to MX, MX came with a more structured way of addressing the addresses. So apart from the name, you have the elements under the postal address. So you have the street name, building number, building name, floor, postal code, town name, and country. Now this is just a partial list. Actually, you will have almost like 15 elements under the postal address. So this becomes very useful in financial crime compliance. It gives more precise creditor name and address matching, useful for FATF reporting and monitoring, and of course it gives you an enhanced client reporting because all this granular data which is being captured. Now that you know what is unstructured and what is structured, it's important to also understand it's not easy to make the transition because you need to capture all these additional elements in your core banking or your product processors. So what Swift came up in this release is a hybrid, a best of breed between these two. So if you look at the hybrid, you still have the postal address, but between these, you have only the town name and the country as the mandatory ones. Everything else you can pack as unstructured under the ADDR line as before. So it uses the simultaneous usage of structured elements within the postal address and unstructured address line. So the postal code, town name, country are the structured part of it, and the ADDR line is where you can put in all your unstructured address elements. So more about it is that the unstructured address line can be two lines. So here I've given an example of one line. You can have an additional line for cases where there are addresses which goes into multiple characters. So you can support 2 into 70. And another important element is that you cannot repeat the same under unstructured. So for example, already I've mentioned Brussels and BE as the country. You should not mention Brussels or BE again in the ADDR line. It will be duplicacy. So these two things you should be careful on. So when is it coming into effect? Now, fully structured obviously is going to be there throughout because that's what MX was meant to have. Fully unstructured support is going to end by 2026. Hybrid is available from the beginning of 2026. So does it mean that in 2026 you can just get away without supporting hybrid? For outgoing, it is optional, but for incoming, if you get an incoming message with a hybrid address, you are supposed to honor it and not fail the transaction. So these are the timelines. Now, what's the impact? It's not an easy change. So Swift has given adequate timelines for this. The whole of year 2026 is going to be a transition year. So in the meantime, you should have the ability in your customer onboarding or the CRM or core banking to capture the hybrid or the structured address for your customers. And of course, you need to migrate it for your existing customers because this is the address which goes out in your field 50K and so on for ordering customer. Secondly, the ability of your external systems like your ERP H2H file, open banking APIs from external systems, internet banking should capture hybrid address during payment initiation. For example, when you're doing a bulk upload from an internet banking, you should have the provision you should give the provision to capture such addresses by your corporates. Ability of other product processors which send out payments like trade and treasury systems also send out payments. So you should have the provision to capture such addresses in those systems as well. And finally, last but not the least, you should update your risk compliance and regulatory reporting systems to report and capture these additional address elements because that's when you're going to reap the maximum benefit of this functionality. Thank you for being with us. In the next series, we are going to look at Islamic banking in more details in the series of videos. Thank you for being with us.